Hey folks, today we'll be talking about endgame crafting, specifically how to get items like this reliably. Now, there's been a lot of speculation in the past, a lot of different theories of how imprints might work, but now we have a bit more details and some actual real numbers, data mined, that go into how the imprint system works if you do this optimally. An item like this can reliably be farmed in as little as a couple hours, maybe even less if you're extremely efficient. Anyway, if you do like this sort of thing, please consider leaving a like on the video. It does help immensely. Yeah, let's jump into it. Before I start, I want to give a huge shout out to Captain Noobzor, who put together this write-up. I'll be putting this in the description. Everything that I'm going over here is going to be in written form in this document. This document will also probably be updated as we learn more. This is combining all the data mining information that we have, as well as actual testing. I also want to give a huge shout out to Dominis from the Discord, who's been going through all of the data mining, pulling out information, and then once we have the data mine info, do some testing, see if it follows up with what our anecdotes say. And so far, it has. The testing has aligned with the data mine, so I feel pretty confident. Before you start with imprint crafting, which is the only reliable way to get double T7s in the game, you need to get your first base. So the bases are going to look something like this. So just a exalted item that has two T7s that you're going to put into your imprint slots. So the 3 here into here, to then get stuff that you can slam into a unique item with 2 or more LP. So something like this. And then get your legendary. Basically, how you first get your base is out of 3 main methods. You have the Nemesis Tower, which is what you probably should do first. The reason why Nemesis is best to do first is because you're going to get a pretty wide variety of items. You don't have a whole lot of control over the items that Nemesis gives you. So it might give you like rings, boots, whatever. You're not selecting, you're not targeting. It's just shotgun approach. So that's why you do this first. The next thing, it's not really a strategy, but just playing the game normally, you will eventually drop double T7s. The drop rate is extremely low, but you will drop them. Once you have most of your the bases that you want, you can start doing a bit more targeting. And then the third method, this is what you do once you are mostly done and you just need to target a few final things. So if you're MG, you can buy a base and craft it a bit, imprint it. Or if you are COF, you can do prophecies. Now, prophecies are pretty bad for exalts. There isn't really much targeting at all. They're pretty favor inefficient. But if you are looking for multi T7 bases, it is probably one of the quickest ways to get it. So if, for example, the only double T7 base you need is boots, all the other ones are done or you don't need them, then I would recommend doing this third method here over the Nemesis Tower, because you're going to be waiting for one item type. Next, we can talk a little bit about how the imprints work. So the main thing is the tiers that you have on the item will stay in the same position. So if you have double T7 prefix, you're always going to end up with double T7 prefix. That's not exactly true, because technically a T7 could turn into a non-T7, and then one of the non-T7s could turn into a T7, but the chance of that is extremely low. It'll almost never happen. So generally, whatever the slot that the T7 is in is what you will get on the output when the imprint procs. So just keep that in mind. That kind of forms the basis of everything we're doing here. So we have here a table that goes over the reroll chance. So you can see here for T7, we have a 70% reroll chance. So this is the chance of it to become something other than T7, 70% chance to basically have a bad imprint. And that's per T7. So if you have 2 of them, the chance of success would be 30% times 30%. That's somewhere around 10%. So right off the bat, your double T7, you have probably around a 10% chance of having double T7 on the imprint. That's why the proc rate seems so low. You can see here there's also the chance that the affixes other than T7 can turn into a T7, but it's extremely unlikely. It'll basically never happen. What you can also learn from this chart is that if you have for example, a T7 T6, and you're imprinting it, hoping to get the T6 to upgrade into a T7, don't bother with that. There's no point. A T1 seems to have about the same chance of upgrading into a T7 as a T6. The next thing is the affixes themselves have a reroll chance as well. So if you imprint T7 int, the chance that your proc has T7 int is extremely low. And that's based on the reroll chance of the affix. So for example, you do T7 hybrid health, you're basically never going to see an imprint that has T7 hybrid health. It also depends on the tiers. Tiers have higher chance of rerolling too. So the main rule of thumb, main thing to keep in mind for this is that the affix that you have on the imprint does not actually matter that much. The next thing is how the game fills affixes. So if you have open affixes, for example, if there is one open affix, so for example, if you have two T7s, a T5, and an open affix, there's a 50% chance that it adds another affix, which then has the tier based on this chart here. So, 22% of it adding a T1 to this item. If you have 2+ open affixes, there's a 90% chance. So what that means is if you have an item that looks like this, where it has 2 open affixes, it's almost guaranteed to add a third, and then it rolls sequentially again, and there's a 50% chance after that roll that it will add a 4th affix. And the tiers are random. So the really important takeaway from this is that it's really a lot better to add the 3rd affix of your choice rather than have the game decide for you. If you want to use this item as an imprint base, it's a lot better to add a T1 like this than have the game decide for you what the tier of the added affix is. Because if the game adds an affix and it adds a T4, which will have a much higher chance if it's empty, you won't be able to seal it. So the reason why you want a T1 is because it's a guaranteed seal on an exalted item that has 4 affixes. So craft the T1. This is what you want. Forging potential has kind of already been known, but basically if you have low FP, you can climb your way up by imprinting an item with low FP, and then you proc with like a little bit more, you replace the imprint, and so on. There's also a really small chance that a low FP item will get a huge boost of FP and converge closer to around 40 FP. So 0 FP items are not a brick. You can still work with them. The next thing is sealed affixes. This is like a new tech that I don't think has been talked about before. But the sealed affix will be removed, but it does actually have a pretty big impact on the resulting item. So what happens is if you have, for example, a item like this that has a sealed T1 lightning blast, when this procs, the seal is removed, but it has a chance to replace the prefix with this affix. So what that means is that the optimal imprint actually has a seal on it, and the chance of the replacing happening is based on the FP. So there's like actual FP breakpoints here. This part is crazy. It's totally optional. You don't have to worry about it. With this method, you can craft your thing anyway, but it will make your chances a little bit better. So basically, if you do want Lightning Blast as one of your desired affixes, having a sealed one on your imprint base is an upgrade. The next thing is, so items keep their subtype 60% of the time. The main takeaway from this is the subtype doesn't really matter that much. If you're going for slams, you don't care about subtype at all. But even if you're going for an item to use as an exalt, the chance that you keep the subtype is still pretty low. It is better, all else equal, if you have a better subtype, use the better subtype. The next thing is the affixes keep their value 40% of the time. So what that means is that if you have basically a perfect imprint and the only thing is that the rolls are bad, it can be worth using a rune of refinement to make your imprint a little bit better. Kind of the rule of thumb is that you want to reduce the amount of crafting you need to do on the output as much as possible, because you're going to have a lot of steps that you need to get through, and the chance you run out of FP is pretty high. So the better item that you can have on the procs, you're going to have a way better time making slammable bases. The next thing is talking about the optimal crafting base. Now, there's going to be exceptions to every rule, but this is going to be what you want to do 99% of the time. I'm going to be talking about other situations in the future of making like really specific, more advanced things for your crafting. But for the general rule of thumb, say, for example, you want an item that has double T7 prefixes. This is basically the perfect imprint. This is what you want. You want double T7 suffix. The reason is the affixes that you have on the item, these have a very high chance to reroll anyway. So if you put the double T7 prefix and you want prefix, chances are you're not going to get the prefixes that you want. And then to fix the item, what you would need to do is havoc it off of the prefixes, either seal or removal the prefix, craft on the prefixes that you want, and then havoc it back, which is like extremely unreliable. You don't want to do that. If you instead put the T7s on the slots that you don't want, that means that you're able to craft the stats you want on the open affixes. So in this example, you want double T7 prefix. So say this is what your proc looks like. You have something like this. What you would do is you would first craft one of the affixes that you want. So here we craft on int. Then you would seal the affix that you don't want. You need to make sure you craft first before you seal. If you don't, it's not going to be guaranteed. The seal could fail, and that's really bad. If you upgrade this into a T2, you're going to be more likely to fail. So always craft first before you seal. Seal the affix you don't want. Then you craft the next affix you do want. So you would do this, and then you just havoc. You have a pretty good chance of making a usable base at this point. If you want, you can do some more stuff for the suffixes now. You could even redemption first. So, for example, if you still have the suffixes here, you could redemption to try and get better suffixes. For items that don't have a lot of options for suffixes, this is a potentially viable option. If you have a lot of FP, especially, you could do the redemption first right now and then havoc onto the prefix. So that's like if you're really min-maxing and you want to make a good usable exalt, you would do something like that. But yeah, that's how you're going to get your base. This is going to happen pretty often because most of the procs you get are actually going to be viable. The next thing I want to talk about is if you want a mixed prefix suffix. So this is a little bit different. So T7 prefix, T7 suffix, this is what you want. So if you want int flat armor, this is what your base would look like. Say this is what your proc looks like. So you get your item, it looks like this. Same with the double prefix. All you would do is craft on int. So this is what you want. You seal what you don't want. Then you craft what you do want. And then if you want, you can redemption here to change these into something different. Or you could just go straight to havoc. And then you're going to end up with the T7 on the affix that you want. Just like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I know this was pretty dense. Read through the document. I'll have it in the description. It has all the information you need if you missed anything in this video. But yeah, this is a day 3 character. I basically just made this, got back from vacation, and we already have some pretty good stuff with our new knowledge of Imprint. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.